little more than 2 years ago, a great and mighty iron wall was finished. It was a security barrier between Israel and the Gaza Strip. It took more than 3 years to build. It was inaugurated in 2021. It's 40 miles long, 20 feet high. That's a huge wall of concrete and steel. The most technologically advanced mixture of concrete, steel, radar systems, underground sensors, cameras. In fact, when it was inaugurated, the defense minister, called Benny Gantz, said that this mix of steel and concrete barrier placed an iron wall around Gaza and would protect the Israelis in the south from the terrorist group Hamas. He said this barrier will provide Israeli citizens with a sense of security and will enable this beautiful region to continue developing and flourishing. 40 miles long, 20 feet tall, sensors, cameras, radar, guard posts, and Saturday. As people were celebrating the Sabbath, relaxing from a week of celebration and dancing and joy on the streets, back in their homes, sleeping comfortably in their mattresses after 7 days of sleeping outside under the stars, in that makeshift little hut that they build outside, every Sukkoth, every Feast of Tabernacles, when suddenly the sirens began to sound. And as they ran out and looked up, the sky was lit with thousands of missiles, that no system would be enough to stop that many at a time. As the missiles streaked through the sky on the way to Israel, even trying to reach Jerusalem, the Hamas militants had made holes in that fence, went through with motorcycles, entered, into Israel, sped quickly all over the south. Then with a bulldozer, they tore down at least one section of that powerful wall. Drones. No, it's not Ukraine. Drones were bombing Israeli military posts and even got a tank. The militants, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, flew in paragliders, flying over that wall, attacking towns, kibbutz, firing on whoever was in their path, killing indiscriminately. Whole towns were taken over, women, children, killed on the streets, kidnapped, raped. Among them, many, many soldiers. They thought they were protected by that wall. Many times we get lax or careless and assume that we are safe and forget that we too are in a war. God's people are continually in a war, whether you like it or not. Just like they in Israel would like to live in peace, would like to live without anyone bothering them or trying to destroy them and throw them into the sea, but at the same time, the same is true for our enemies. And they are also a legion. The world of darkness hates the world of light. In this war that has gone on for generations and generations, from the very beginning, since Cain killed his brother Abel, the only brother he had, a child of light. But sometimes we also forget. We forget that this is a war. We forget that the walls that we think sometimes will protect us and that we're protected. In Argentina, Saturday, I think it was the 23rd of September, I spoke about the walls and the breaches in the walls. Breaches in our walls, the gaps, the holes that are in our walls. That as Song of Solomon says, in chapter 2, verse 15, let the foxes come in. The foxes that destroy, that spoil the vineyards. Because the vineyards are in bloom. Especially when God moves and His light begins to make our hearts to bloom with faith and joy and hope. That's where the little foxes look for a place to be able to come in and spoil those blooms. Take away our happiness, take away our faith in God, take away our excitement, our praise, our prayers. and to spoil those little blooms so they don't grow. But those foxes find a way. The wall is not impenetrable. There cannot be peace unless that wall is firm. Unless our walls are repaired. And there are walls in the people's hearts, in the church. But there also are many times, sometimes unbeknownst to us. In Israel, they have for years been digging under those walls. Hundreds and hundreds of miles of tunnels and places of storage leading everywhere outside. And in a moment they can pop up from under the walls. Little foxes that come to steal the tender shoots of the vine. And many people are aware of those gaps or breaches. In fact, people are more aware than we are of our own gaps, of our own accesses where the enemy can get in. And yes, they'll even are capable of criticizing. Look, that's a hole in your wall. You should fix it. But instead of trying to help fix or stand in that breach and protect that place of weakness in our brother and our sister. But how do these breaches occur? It is true, just like the enmity between the Jews and the groups that hate the sons of Abraham. Evil resides even inside of us, waiting to attack us every day, every hour. Several years ago, I spoke about the bacteria and viruses that we have constantly attacking us from inside, that are in our mouth. And I mentioned there was over 6 billion bacteria. I mean, with a B. That's a lot of little beasts trying to infect us, including 700 different species of them. So if one can't get through, the other one does, that provoke disease, plus viruses. Most of them, of course, are suppressed by our immune system. We're not even aware, but sometimes one of these germs or viruses is able to overpower our immunity system and breaks through and we get sick. How did it suddenly get fortified? My father used to have a theory. He said that he thought that viruses were very closely related to devils and demons because they don't have life in themselves. They need to get strength from the host. The virus will die if it cannot latch on to a healthy cell and use that cell to multiply, give it strength, give it quantity. So by itself, it'll just die. It can't do anything. It doesn't have any life in itself. It just grabs the life of the cell to be able to do us harm. They can just suddenly decide they want to attack us. Do they need permission from God to attack us? Yeah. In fact, we have several in the scriptures indications that they do, as like in Job. And he was not able to come through that wall unless God said, okay, you can touch him, but you can't take his life. Whereas Peter, Satan has desired to sift you, but I prayed that even though he might get through that wall, he's been allowed to, I have prayed that your faith not fail. So, or is there circumstances and things that happen that allow those viruses to overcome our defenses? You know, there is a possibility that the enemy is able to come through our defenses because we're not protecting our defenses. We're not taking care of our walls. We're not like the watchman on the walls. We are not walking up and down the walls and seeing if suddenly the enemy is sneaking towards this corner or that corner, and go and look, hey, what's going on there? Why am I being attacked over here? They're wanting to, what's going on? Oh, there's a breach there. There's a hole there. No wonder they're all gathered there. And we, as the Jews last Saturday, we are resting so many times in our Sabbath, enjoying life, forgetting that the enemy doesn't take vacations. The enemy does not take Sabbaths. He's continually at war, just awaiting the opportunity to breach our walls. So what is it? Is it circumstances? Is it things that we can avoid or things that we cannot avoid? I was just talking to my daughter, Debbie, a couple of days ago, and she was mentioning how the scientists say Grandma wasn't right. You can't catch a cold because you go out and it was too cold. But then she said something else. She says, now they say they were wrong. Oh, okay, well then maybe it was something else. It wasn't that exposure. And science says you catch it by getting it from someone else. And I said, okay. And then she said, but now they said, Grandma was right. When she said, put on your jacket, put on your sweater. When you go outside, or you'll catch a cold. And now they say, Grandma was right. The cold comes because when you go out to the cold and you're not protected by a jacket, your nose gets cold, and when you breathe, there are the protections from our viruses and everything else, and then they do not work, those filters, because they get cold, they stop working. No more immunology there, so they go straight up there and we catch a cold. So it was circumstances beyond my control. So many times, the breach in the walls isn't necessarily because we forgot to pray, we forgot to read a Bible, we forgot to go to church, or sometimes it's just circumstances that we do not control that cause those breaches to open and the enemy to be able to come and harass us. So what do you do? What do you do when you realize that the enemy has infiltrated your life, stealing your joy, killing your hope? What do? You start damage control. You begin countermeasures as soon as you realize your walls have been breached. It's not time to start saying, well, let me think about this. How did it happen? When did it happen? No. There's time. There'll be time in Israel from to figure out what on earth happened when that totally 100% secure fence, why the sensors didn't work, why nobody was watching the cameras, were the soldiers celebrating the Sabbath? What happened? But see, when you've been invaded, you don't have time to say, we'll do that later. Right now, let's take care of this problem. Right now, I have to confront these viruses. I have to confront what's happening. I have to fight against them and begin countermeasures immediately, as soon as you realize something's not right. Your walls have been breached. Knowing that if you don't act immediately to stop the damage, you could just ignore it, thinking it might go away, things might get better by themselves. They never do. Once the enemy has got into our thoughts, our emotions, we begin thinking, the biggest problem is the brain is the enemy of the heart. And many times our thoughts, many times influenced our thoughts by negative forces or the enemy within us, or the evil within us is the worst enemy of our heart. That's where the breaches start. When we allow our thoughts to go on their own, without control, without stopping, without influencing them. And not even talking about this generation that's so influenced by the thoughts that come to them through social media, through kids in school. You've heard me say many times in the past that this age is an age to control the minds and the hearts. If they can control the minds, they can control the hearts. And that is the greatest battle. And even for us, it's the thoughts that are our enemies. It's the thoughts. It's the enemy of the heart. And our enemies are relentless. And if we don't close that gap, if we don't do like the scripture says, stop thinking those thoughts, filter those thoughts, and whatever things are true, whatever things are good, whatever things are good reports, whatever things, on those things think, filter, stop that gap. Because if you don't stop it, more and more and more are going to infiltrate through that hole, that breach, until they destroy us. You cannot be passive. You must be proactive. Repair, strengthen the breaches. Do not let that affect your heart. Because once it affects your heart, it'll affect your faith. Without faith, you're in a bad position. I started this message speaking about the 40-mile high, long and 20-foot high iron wall with all these sensors and protections. Yet, somehow, somebody rested on the Sabbath. See, you cannot rest ever. You must always, always, always be vigilant. The watchman has to be on the wall 24/7, which means even monitoring dreams that trouble us, even monitoring and asking the Lord if things are troubling you at night. Pray for night protections. The guard has to be walking up and down the walls continually. Yes, they're all asking right now, how could this happen? Whose fault is it? Why did it fail? But, like I said, when you're under attack in your life, in your faith, it's not time for finding who's at fault. It's time of reacting, getting in there, defending and recuperating the land that was lost, the land that was taken from you, the joy that was taken from you, the hope that was taken from you, the faith in His promises that was thrown away. Don't sit there like so many do when they're under attack. They just start feeling sorry for themselves. Poor little me, look what happened to me. That leads to depression. It's time to act, to counterattack, to repair the broken, to recuperate that which was stolen from you. Look at yourself in a mirror. Are you like you were before? Is this who you are? Is this how you normally react? Is this you looking back at you? Has something changed? Is your love strong, your faith strong, your zeal strong, your joy strong, your hope? Or has it diminished? If it has, then go to the repairer of breaches. Don't just wait. Go stand in the gap. And that little breach through which, like I just read in Song of Solomon, it says, not only did the foxes come in, catch us the foxes. Catch them. Catch them that spoil the vineyard. So, okay, a little breach got, the little fox get in. He's so cute, the guy. He came in, he starts looking at your vineyard, and he starts nibbling at your vine, and you say, oh, what can this little fox do? I got so much blooms in my vineyard. My vineyard's so big, so strong, been going for so long. That's okay. He'll just take a bite, maybe take a branch or two, and then go back his tiny little hole through my breach, and who cares? This is not a matter of life or death. I won't die because of it. It's just a little problem I have. It's just something, in my nature, in my life that I could, if I wanted to, I could confront it, but it's just a little thing. I mean, it's almost cute. The little fox. The problem is that once the enemy is able to make a little hole for a little fox to get in, it'll make it bigger and bigger until the lion can come in and start robbing and destroying everything that's beautiful in your life. It was only a little thing, but it doesn't stop at a little thing. Once that little fox has an entrance, then his brothers want to come, then his mother want to come, then they all say, oh, we have a nice feast in there, and so it gets bigger and bigger, and then the lion comes in. Your faith, your love, even the good decisions you made will suddenly become colder and colder as the blooms begin to be ripped off by the foxes and their family. So you must take action. Don't let the enemy of your soul take you hostage, make you prisoner. Don't just stand there and be weakened and destroyed. They tell me that several people died, but took many with them. They took their weapons as soon as they saw what was going on and just started fighting, started shooting back. Others just shocked and didn't know what was going on. They didn't respond. So fight back, retaliate. Don't accept the invasion. Don't wait until you're surrounded by an army. Stand up and fight them back. Scriptures say that we have been given powerful weapons. The greatest of all is the power of the blood. Our enemies hates the blood. Hates the blood. The blood cleanses, and cleansing the wound allows it to heal. Blood placed upon the breach allows that breach to be filled, to be closed. The blood is powerful. And Paul said to the Corinthians in 2 Corinthians 10, he said, though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're mighty. Through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Seeing the strongholds, he says, those big holes, he says they're caused not by physical things, it's caused thoughts. Casting down those strongholds, which are imaginations, high things that exalts itself, every thought, bringing it to the obedience of Christ. That stronghold falls. And I finish with the words of the Prime Minister that he said on Saturday, just a few hours after the attack happened. He said, citizens of Israel, we are at war. It's strange that they should be reminded that. They've been attacked so many times. They had to fight so many times. It was the thousands of missiles. All of a sudden the crisis. All of a sudden everything to tell them, oh, do you remember? We're at war. I mean, they should know they're at war. And yet he said, this is different. Some 5 hours after, he said, citizens, we are at war. This is not a so-called military operation. This is not another round of fighting, tit for tat. You send a missile, we send you a bomb. You put a bomb, bring a bomb somewhere, and we'll tear down your parents' house. It's always tit for tat. It's been going on for decades. I mean, way back there, the first time I remember going to Israel, it was that way. A militant would plant a bomb and they would bring down the house that he lived in. But he said, this is war. This is not just a little skirmish. This is not just a little military operation. I get excited, or in church, oh yes, Lord, demon, get out of my life. This is war. And war is not once a week. War is night and day, every moment of our lives. That is war. So he said, this is war. It's not a skirmish, not a minor conflict. If we're going to fulfill and follow God to what He has for our lives, we have to make this a war in our life. not just a spurt once in a while, but a way of life. Because the path that he is calling the new generation to walk is one that they must be always ready for battle. Non-stop war against the light of God in our hearts. A war to quench the flame that creates that fire within us. And as us that are in Argentina, they have a name for our age, and I like that. He says, the young retirees. And I consider myself a young senior. But I'm afraid that as time goes on, as we see how the battle against the hearts and minds and against the light of God in the world progresses, that you will have to leave your weapons and your uniform on even when you go to bed. When you wake up, make sure it's working. Make sure you check the house if something happened at night. Citizens of Israel, we are at war. And then he ended saying, and we will win. I like that. We are at war, made everyone sad. We will win, gave everybody hope. And I can tell you, I know who's going to win this war. And you should too. You know. So Paul says to Romans, in finishing, what shall we say then to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? In verse 33, who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? It is God that justifies. Who is he that condemns? It is Christ that died. Yes, that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of the Father making intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution? Let me go slowly here. Let me read that again. Who can separate us from the love of Christ? Tribulation. And the Romans had to go through that. There were those that lived in Rome and went through the tribulation. Distress, persecution, famine, nakedness, peril, or even sword. As it is written, for your sake we are killed all day long, and we are counted as sheep for the slaughter. But in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. We will win. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. And as I mentioned last week, as the Jews rejoiced at the beginning of a new year, rejoiced that their sins had been forgiven in Yom Kippur, and danced on the streets on that feast of Sukkot, and then they let down their guard when it was over. And even though so many times it might be a beautiful Sabbath, even though we've had a wonderful time in God's presence, and we think, oh, I'm feeling so good, so blessed, I'll be all right for a whole month. And sometimes it feels that way. But remember the words of Peter in 1 Peter 5:8. Be sober. I don't know if that means don't let your mind be clouded by the effects of alcohol and celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles. I don't know. I don't know if the guards celebrated too much and forgot to look at the screens. I don't know. But I do know that we are instructed to stay sober, to be vigilant. Vigilant. Because your adversary is the devil. The devil is in the details always, isn't it? As a roaring lion walks about, walks continually around our fortifications, looking for a foxhole that has been left exposed to the wind, the rain. The fox is going in and out unperturbed and has now become a big breach that he can come in, seeking whom he may devour. So we cannot rest, nor can we neglect our walls. And you know, yes, there is another part of walls I'd like to share with you. Is there is a wall around our lives that we must take care of. But sometimes, like happened to Israel on Saturday, sometimes those walls are breached. Perhaps no fault of anybody. They're just breached. An attack by all directions. And the walls are breached. Are we lost? Will we be destroyed? Will His people be destroyed? God says through Zechariah chapter 2 and verse 5, and I've mentioned this before, for I, the Lord, will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the glory in the midst of her. So we can see that there's that big outer man-made wall of concrete, of our strong will, of our obedience, of our following Christ with the best of our abilities. Be sure to do our best to close any avenue the enemy might have to reach our lives or reach our families. But everything we can do in the natural will never be enough. That's why God says, inside of that wall and between that wall and your life, I will make another wall, a secondary wall. a wall of fire, and will be the glory in the midst of her. So fear not, Israel. Even though so many of you have forgotten the Sabbath, even though many of you have forgotten your God, even though many of you have embraced all sorts of evil, broken all the commandments there be, God loves you, Israel. God will keep you, Israel. And though you've been faulty in keeping your walls and giving your heart over to the God of this world, God's wall still stands, and He is your last, your first, and your only hope and protection. For He likes to call Himself the God of Israel. So take hope, Israel. Though tears may endure for a night, joy will come in the morning. Because within that breached wall, there's another wall that cannot be breached. And as it was promised by Isaiah 54:17, no weapon that is forged against you shall prosper. So fear not the weapon that Iran is making. Fear not whatever weapon man might make. It cannot go through the wall of fire that He has placed around you. No weapon against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that rises in judgment against thee thou shalt condemn. So people of God that have embraced the God of Abraham, that have their hearts circumcised and that are true children of Israel, rejoice. No weapon shall prosper. Yes, it might produce tears for a while, but it shall not prosper. And Isaiah also defends, saying in Isaiah 26:1, we have a strong city. Salvation shall God appoint as walls and bulwarks. So the walls that He had appointed around us are salvation. And Isaiah again says in 60:18, thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. And Zechariah again 9:8 says, I like this. He said, will be a wall of fire. Now He says, I will encamp about mine house because of the army that wants to destroy you. And glory will I be in the midst of her. Hallelujah. Father, thank you for the salvation you have blessed us with. Thank you for adopting us. Thank you for giving us the light, the pleasure, the privilege to be a part of your people, grafted into the roots of Jesse, save your people, not only from their natural enemies, but from those that would try to take away the inheritance that you've given to them. We bless them today, and we pray as we have in the very beginning. We pray for thy peace, Jerusalem. We bless you. May you be blessed. And may the Lord give you peace. Amen and amen.